All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Ignite podcast. I'm really excited for today's episode, actually, team. So for those of you who don't know me, my name's Josh Stone. I'm the founder of Ignite Coaching. I work purely with business owners and business leaders of engineering consultancies to help them grow and scale their teams and their businesses. I love what I get to do every single day. So what I thought I'd do, this is a common theme coming up with my coaching clients at the moment, because a lot of my business owner clients, a lot of my team leader clients are looking to, the end of the year in terms of using some of that time to do some strategic planning with their team, or they're looking to the new year in terms of setting up some sessions with their team to refocus, reset, and look at the strategic planning for the team or the business and where they're going in next year or into the next sort of 3 to 5 years. So what I wanted to do is kind of walk you through what I'm seeing working really, really well at the moment when it comes to how to run a really good strategic planning session with your team. So a lot of the times we go, oh, we should run a strategic planning session with the team. We should get them reconnected to the vision and let's come together as a team. That'll be great. But a lot of the times these things fall flat on their face because they're not run well, and there's no sort of system or process to follow to get the best outcome of that session or those sessions. And then there's no system or process to actually implement any of that stuff. And one of the biggest culture killers I see out there in engineering consultancies is business owners or leadership teams who run these sessions, they facilitate these discussions, a team gets excited, and then nothing happens. Or, promises get made, oh, we'll do that by, first quarter next year. We'll do that by second quarter next year. And, those timeframes come and go and nothing happens because the business owners get busy, team leaders get busy, they forget about that session. That was sort of a bit of a token thing that they did, and then nothing happens. And then what that cements in the team is that my leader or the person running this business, there's mistrust there in terms of they haven't followed through on their promises. I got really excited about that, new initiative that we all talked about, or the new direction or new clients we were going to start working with. I got really excited about that and nothing happened. So therefore, mistrust starts to get set up in your team. And the more you miss those milestones or miss those opportunities to follow through on your word, the more you miss those opportunities, the more mistrust gets set up, the more there's talking behind the scenes. And then, that's when culture goes down the drain. So we have to get really focused and make sure that if we're going to run these sessions, we're going to run them well. And we're going to do the follow-up in terms of making sure that what we say is going to happen actually happens. So what I want to walk you through, there's processes and steps we can kind of go through. The first thing that I want to talk to you about, though, and I want to share a bit of a client story, is when we're going into these visioning sessions or strategic planning sessions, we're looking forward to the future. And a lot of us, not just engineers, a lot of us really struggle with the future because it's unknown. We don't know where we're going. We don't know what's going to happen. And so many people like to be in their comfort zone, and they like to know what's going to happen. They like to know how the next year, 2, 3 years is going to play out. Of course, we can't. No one's got a crystal ball or anything like that. But a lot of the times there's a bit of anxiety that gets set up in these strategic planning sessions or visioning sessions, because it's like, we're talking about the future. We don't know what's going to happen. That's a bit scary for me. That's getting me outside of my comfort zone. So you, as the leader of your team or your business, you have to get really connected to your vision first and your why. So you have to be, and whether it's the right analogy or reference or what have you, I use the analogy of the Pied Piper a lot, in terms of you're the one out in front leading your team and saying, trust me, come along for the journey. Trust me, I've got you, I've got this, come follow me, kind of thing. So you have to be, and this is where the influence piece comes into, and the motivation and the inspiring piece comes into it. You have to be really connected to your why, energized, inspired, motivated, really excited for what's happening in the future, really keen for where you're going to take things, and we're really keen for your vision for the business or the team, because that's infectious. And when you're energized, inspired, and you're up in front of the room starting these strategic planning workshops, and you're talking about where you'd like things to go, and you've connected to your vision, and you're really excited for this workshop so you can see what the vision is for everyone in the room and where they want to take things, the more that you start off like that infectious, energized, inspired kind of energy, the more people are like on your team, like, whoa, he or she's really excited by this. And then like, that's infectious. And they're like, oh, I can kind of rest easy knowing that they're really inspired. I'm going to get into this workshop now and really see where I want to take things. So I was working with a client. So quick story. I was working with a client who was doing exactly this. New role, in charge of about 150 people within their remit or their team. And there's a bit of shift coming in their industry, and they wanted to take things in a new direction. And so we started working together, and they're like, Josh, I really want to run a series of workshops, a strategic planning workshop and a visioning workshop with my team to kind of rebase, reset. I'm a new leader, and I want to kind of get everyone really energized. And I'm like, amazing. Like, I'm so on board with that. That's cool. Let's do this. But I said, first, we have to get you connected to your why. Like, why is this really important to you? Like, why do you get out of bed every day? Why do you do what you do? And to be honest, I think a lot of people just get into our industry through a number of different avenues. Some people are really connected to their why and their vision the whole way through, their North Star. Other people kind of get into it and they're excited about making a difference, but then they kind of fall into the day-to-day of doing things, and they very rarely revisit this. And so this was actually quite hard initially for my client to connect to why. Like, why do I get out of bed every day? Why am I inspired to lead this team of 150 people in this new direction? And why is it so important to me? And so, I mean, I can share a little bit about them in terms of they're in the environmental space. So we did a bit of work around, okay, well, why did you get into this in the first place? What made you come down this path? And to kind of cut not a long story short, but it did take a bit for my client to get connected to their why and why they got out of bed every day. But what we landed on was so powerful. And you could tell immediately once they'd had that realization, and we did some work around, okay, well, going through high school, as their upbringing, loved the environment, loved getting out in nature in high school, had some amazing people around them that were really connected to nature and the environment, wanting to do incredible things. Going through university, and you could tell going through that journey with this person, starting to really connect to, and this is where I want to take the conversation, we have to connect to our why at an emotional level, not a logical level. So I'll say that again. We have to connect to our why we get out of bed every day, why we do what we do every day at an emotional level, not a logical level. If you're going to run a strategic planning session or a visioning session with your team, you have to be emotional. You have to be connected to why you're so passionate about what you do, and your team have to feel you. Because if it's just a logical, I want to make heaps more money because this sector's booming, this one's not, no one gets that. Like, money's not a motivator. So people will see through that too. Oh, the business owner just wants to make more money. Yeah, cool. So you are leading your team into the darkness, so to speak, with a strategic planning session or visioning session. They have to trust you. They have to be emotionally connected to what you're talking about and where you want to take things in your vision, and you're passionate, you're inspired, and they're like, whoa, all right, let's get on board with this, because this energy that my business owner or team leader is emitting is infectious. And so to finish off the story about my client, we connected to all of that all the way through, and they said to me, Josh, I want to give the environment a voice. And you could instantly tell that was it for them, in terms of they'd connected to their why. Like, just a simple statement all the way through, all the work they do, the fighting they do with, they go in and be advocates for the environment, best practice and all that sort of stuff. I want to give the environment a voice. And that was their why. They just immediately connected to it. And you could tell at emotional level, yes, you found your why. And like, I got goosebumps and shivers. And I was like, this is incredible. I'm so glad that you've connected to that. But For that person now, they can take that story, and this is where I want to go in terms of the setup for the strategic planning sessions. They can take that story, and as they address that room of 150 people in that visioning session, they can now share that story, that journey, primary school, out in nature, high school, amazing people around them who, big advocates of the environment, university, into the career, and they can share that story and that journey. And I want to give the environment a voice. That's why I'm up here in front of you all today. That's why I want to lead this team with conviction. That's why I want to lead, our team for the next 3 to 5 years in this direction, because I want to give the environment a voice. And that is so, I can't wait to see how that visioning session goes. That's coming up in a couple of weeks for my particular client, but I can't wait to see how that story, them sharing their why, lands with their team. And so in the lead up to these sessions, or just in general, I really encourage you to connect to your why. Like, why do you get out of bed every day? What difference are you trying to make in the industry? Who are you trying to, whose lives are you trying to make better? And the more you can stop and connect to that, the more you're going to be such an influencing and motivating and inspiring leader at the best of times, in terms of, or at the worst of times as well, in terms of how you bring your team along for the journey. So you have to get connected to your why, and it has to be at an emotional feeling level, not just a logical, rational, because it makes sense, or I want to make more money or whatever. So you have to do that first. So onto the structure of a strategic planning session with your team. Again, this has to be very well thought out. Some people like to do full days, half days, 2 hours. You have to work out how much you can afford with your team to take off. Some people do a couple of sessions, but the structure needs to be very well thought out in terms of, it always has to have an opening, a middle, and an end. And the end has to have, and I'll get to the end in a bit more detail in a second, but the end has to have a conclusion with actions. So, and you can do this a number of different ways, but it's really about, so it's important to get connected to your why and your vision for where you want to take the team. But your why won't change for you, but your vision and your direction, where you want to take the team, you can't have steadfast, you can't have that locked in place going into these sessions, because if the team collectively decide they want to go in a different direction, obviously, if you're the business owner, you've got to make sure that that aligns with business goals and that kind of thing. But if you go into those strategic planning sessions rigid with like, oh, this is just a bit of a box ticking exercise, I've already planned out where I want to take things, I don't really care what everyone has to say, no matter what anyone says, we're still going in this direction that I want to. You have to be fluid and flexible. You have to have your why, be connected to it at an emotional level, know where you're going, but you have to be prepared to take on board and act on where the collective team want to take things. So you come into these sessions, you have an opening, you share your why, you share why we're here today, you share why it's so important for you, why you're so passionate about where you're taking things, etc., etc. So you've got to really, you're going to be vulnerable. You're going to open up and be vulnerable in terms of why we're here, where you want to take things, why you're passionate about what you do, where you want to take the industry or the company within the industry, that kind of thing. And you share your why to your group. What that's doing is, one, it's getting them connected to maybe a little bit about their why initially. You're being a vulnerable leader, so you're creating the space for that room to be quite open. And you're showing the team, like I said to you before, you're the Pied Piper, you're showing your team, I've got you, I'm passionate, I'm inspired, I want to take this thing places, come with me, trust me, come with me. So the opening is you're sharing your why in terms of why we're here and why, you do what you do every day. So I want to give the environment a voice. That's your why, or, your why equivalent. You then want to, obviously you can do this in a myriad of different ways, break up into smaller groups depending on the size of the room, but you want them to then connect to their why. So why are they here? Why did they get out of bed every day? Why do they want to do why do they do what they do every single day? And by you sharing your why, it opens up the avenue for them to think a little bit more openly about their why. So your why, then their why, in terms of where do they want to take the industry, why are they passionate, all those sorts of things, why do they get out of bed every day? You then want to have people share. So again, I know this is creating a space of people maybe getting a bit outside of their comfort zone, that sort of thing, but you want to have people share their why, because the more you get one person sharing, then it's on to the next person, then it's on to the next person, and suddenly you've got 5 or 10 people sharing their why, and it becomes an incredibly powerful team building exercise where people can go, oh wow, I didn't know that about Mary, I didn't realize she was so passionate about that, or I can't believe Steve is so motivated by that. Getting people sharing their why creates that team culture of sharing, openness, and getting great ideas flowing. You then want to, once you've done the why and the visioning and that sort of thing, once you've done the why, your why and their why, and they're connected to why it's so important to them, you then want to go into, okay, what does the next 12 months look like? What are you excited about creating? What are you excited about doing? What kind of clients are you excited to work for? You do the same thing for the next 3 years, 5 years, however far out you want to go. You want to, and you can break up into groups. You can do that as a collective group, depending on the size of the room or the number of people you have in the room. But you want to get just people journaling, writing, and thinking about what kind of clients we want to work with in 12 months' time. Where do I see my role? What am I doing? What kind of work are we doing? What kind of difference and impact are we making? So these kind of questions get people thinking about the future and what they're excited to create. You then want to get everyone together. And so that's kind of the middle piece. The end piece is you always need to come away from these sessions with an agreed direction, a shared vision, and action plans in place for everyone in the room. So an agreed direction, a shared vision, and an action plan in place for everyone in the room. Can't just be, 2 or 3 people taking actions. Everyone needs to come away from that strategic planning workshop or visioning workshop with a couple of actions that they are committing to taking over the next 2 to 3 months in terms of moving that forward. And by everyone having an action plan in place, there's a level of accountability there with the team. Everyone's got something to do. And if someone doesn't do it, it means that all those things that we agreed to in the room, someone's broken that trust or broken that promise. So you want to obviously get together once everyone's kind of worked out where you want to go. And then you've got to then, as the leader or business owner, and you can get an external person to facilitate these things too, you want to facilitate a discussion where you come away with an agreed direction in terms of an agreed where are we going. And it's so important that you don't leave that room unfinished. I know it's hard, so you got to facilitate it and manage the time and that sort of thing, but you need to leave that room with a shared vision and a shared direction. Because if you leave that room with unfinished business, it feels unfinished to everyone. And, everyone's just like, well, we kind of got some places, but it feels like a bit of a waste of time because then everyone just goes back to their day job and it gets forgotten about. So you need to come away with an agreed, with the consensus in the room, hands up, okay, we're voting things out, okay, yep, what's a consensus, an agreed shared vision and a shared direction in terms of where are you going and what is our vision. So maybe the vision is collectively, we agree our vision and our collective why is we want to give the environment a voice, or, your version of that. So you have to have a shared vision, a shared direction coming out of that meeting. It has to be agreed to, and you have to have action plans in place. And everyone has to go around the room and they talk about their action plan. If it's a room of 150 people, you've got to get through it quickly, but you need 150 people saying the one thing that they're going to work on coming out of that session to move that vision and that strategy forward. And then you as the business owner or team leader, you're the one saying, okay, team, we're going to get together in the next 3 months or 6 months. We're agreeing that these things are going to happen. I'm personally responsible and going to ensure all of these things happen. And you make that commitment to the room that day, and then you personally follow through on those actions, because that's what creates team culture. That's what gets everyone leaving that room energized, focused, motivated, because it's been a great workshop. Everyone's shared their why, everyone's kind of got connected to their why, and they probably haven't done that their entire career. And then, everyone feels confident in the direction and the vision of the business or the team because they all agreed to it, and everyone's got actions too. And so your biggest focus coming out of that workshop is to make sure that all of those things happen in terms of everyone's follow-ups, everyone's actions, and your actions in terms of what's going to happen over the next 3, 6, 9, 12 months from that visioning workshop or that planning session. So that was a lot. Team, that's how you run a really, really good strategic planning session. Have to get connected to your why. You have to be the Pied Piper. You have to connect it at an emotional level. Facilitate a session where people are not just in their heads, they're in their emotion, they're in the creative parts of their brain, getting excited for where they're taking things. And then follow up and actions are so key coming out of that, because that creates culture, and that shows that you're the type of leader or business owner that follows through on commitments and follows through on your word. Team, that's it. That was a lot in that download, or that training session around how to run a really good strategic planning session with your team. I hope you got a lot out of that. Any questions at all, let me know. And if you'd like some help with this sort of stuff, if you'd like some help building your team, building your business to be more profitable, to scale it, to grow it as much as you want, please don't hesitate to reach out. I obviously love what I do. I love working with my clients, and I'd love to have a chat with you about how I could help you grow your team or your business. That's it for me today, team. Have an amazing week ahead. Ciao.